Digitization is the future of the global supply chain, and this is especially true for the electronic components industry. How could it not be when the industry is prone to unpredictable market instabilities, geopolitical crises, and a manufacturing process that takes hundreds of steps to produce one viable component? And digitization is definitely the logical next step in business evolution, and with that comes a lot of other growth opportunities as well. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Analytics Insight podcast, where we talk about the ever evolving technology space. And I'm your host, Priya Dialani. Now, people want smarter phones, homes, vehicles, and watches. And the use of electronic components within all these products is rising. And with that rise and snowballing numbers, we also have an increased use of data. So, how can digital transformation or digitization enhance the use of data and other emerging technologies in the electronics industry? So today with us we have Ravi Peddhibhotla, Chief Digital Officer of TVS Electronics. Hi Ravi, how are you? Welcome to our podcast.
Hey, hi, Priya. Thanks for having me here. I'm doing well and hope you're doing well too.
Great, likewise. I'm doing good too, and it's a pleasure to have you with us on our podcast. So let's, I think most of our audience are well aware about TVS Electronics, but I would still, ask you if you could tell us more about the company and its specialization.
Actually, I was hearing what you were talking about in terms of the electronic products that were coming out, and it's very interesting, right? I mean, we talk about the products and the data because that's the kind of thing that we normally see as end consumers or real life people out there. But it only strikes after you join a company like TVS Electronics that how do this entire manufacturing process itself happen, and so let me get to the specifics of your question itself. So TVS Electronics is primarily into a B2B. Okay, let's be very kind of clear. We are a B2B organization.
Right.
So what we do is we get into solutions, and when I say solutions, these are problems that we hear from our enterprises, because I said our customers are B2B. So we are talking about enterprises of all different sizes. Okay, so they talk to us about all these kind of problems that they kind of go through, and our job is to find a solution which actually uses these electronics products that you are referring to. So these electronic products, how do they kind of stitch together? Probably it will have some kind of digital overlap. We'll probably talk more about that a little later. So how do you take these products
Mm-hmm.
together, which are comprising of electronic components, create actual solutions to address some of these problems that our enterprises are talking about? So that is one part of TVS
Mm-hmm.
Electronics. The second part that comes out is the services. Obviously, when you have these products which are made up of these very very delicate electronic components, so they have to go through a lot of maintenance to kind of ensure that they're working. And then it's not just as easy to kind of replace your iPhone tomorrow morning, right? So same thing with the many of these products that come from TVS Electronics. So how do you go through that? So
Right.
services forms another major platform, or the pillar that we do. So to bring these products, services, and solutions together, you definitely need a factory, and that's where TVS Electronics has a very large facility, which goes from all the way from a repair factory in terms of your L3, L4 kind of services that we talk about, and into electronic manufacturing services that we offer for our enterprises that we said is a B2B company. And stitching all this together, the factory, the solutions, the products, and the services that we do, is a digital platform, and that's kind of the role that I play within the organization. So we are primarily a B2B company with solutions, products, services, and platform, with factory kind of enabling all this together.
Right, right. Understanding that was quite clear and straightforward. And thank you for helping us understand all the different aspects of TVS Electronics. Now, now that we were talking about the company. Now, I would also like to have some highlights on your experience as well. Now, before talking to you, I think I've heard that you have overseen numerous extensive strategic digital initiatives, and you have also spent a lot of time spearheading digital capabilities and facilitating the organization shift from customer centricity while optimizing cost and agility of technology as well. So we're very keen to know what is your role and contribution towards the company right now.
Okay. So, like I said, when you have these business services that are coming in terms of solution service, platform, and the repair services, the factory, and all, how do you bring all these together so that the front, middle, and back office kind of work so smoothly they don't even realize that which is the front and which is the middle and back office, right? So that's where the digital platform that we're talking about in TVS Electronics is playing a very key differentiator, not just for us but for the whole industry. If I may, I can actually feel extremely confident in saying, based on my 25-30 years of career in the software industry, there is only one platform that I can think of, which is probably from TVS Electronics alone. I have found that it's not shown anywhere in the public domain. Is it caters all the way
Mm.
from actually creating products to all the way up to the repair services that are involved, and all the way up to the manufacturing of electronic goods and services that we talk about. So a single platform that can touch across all this, and again going back to the recycling of these products and components, so that you could really do auctioning of those kind of products and bring that back to life and bring that back into the same kind of products that you and I consume. So the refurbishment and the recycle and the reuse of the electronic products. So this platform altogether getting stitched is something that I work on, and it's very unique in the way
Right.
it's kind of done. And we are probably the closest in the industry today to have a platform of this, breadth and depth for the, for this electronics industry, if I can say. So that's me and my team kind of, working on,
Mhm.
and we have been on this journey for, let's say,
Right.
four plus years right now.
That's nice. I'm glad to hear that, and it's so a matter of pride that you're talking about a technology which is built in India, and helping us make India more in a more of a limelight position when you're talking about the global race towards digitization and digital adoption. Now, since we're talking about India, studies show that India's digital economy is expected to rise something between US dollars 500 billion to somewhere around US $1 trillion by 2025. So that is somehow contributing to around 20 to 25% of the country's GDP. Now, of course, the IT sector and the startup sectors are contributing significantly to the economy and developing cutting edge solutions and promoting innovations across different industries and not just electronics that way. But if you consider, there's this adoption of artificial intelligence, which is also, I believe, driven by the investments made by tech companies like Microsoft, Google, and AWS. And that way, I think digitization has become like a must-have and a critical aspect when we're talking about the overall development of any country, including India. So I wanted to understand what are your views on the current basic digital ecosystem in India.
I mean, today, you just cannot not speak about UPI, ONDC, and the whole Indian public digital goods kind of infrastructure that has been laid out, right? So the way I'm looking at it, and it's obviously very personal in the way you've kind of experienced digital in as part of TVS, and your general IT experience. So the way I'm looking at the current ecosystem in India is, yes, we have kind of moved away from zero, which is probably using paper and pencil, to kind of using electronic devices, and now kind of going into the digital stream, like we said, the examples being the UPI, the India digital stack, and so on. But where I think is something that is a big opportunity that I can see is what you normally look at as traditional digital slash IT, right? We use languages like product catalog, we use things like shopping cart, but that is not the same in the remaining part of a country like India. So in a different culture, it might be called something else, but a merchant would definitely not kind of relate to product catalog like the way you and I probably kind of say. So what is that transformation that is required in India to bring that aspects of cultural things into the digital products and services that we are doing? That I think is going to be the next kind of wave that is going to happen. But as far as we are concerned today, given where we were and what we are kind of experiencing at the digital ecosystem in India, it's like unimaginable what digital has done to the merchants, has done to the organizations, has done to the common man. And you name it, the kind of the world we are living in with digital is very different and very so convenient. But the next change, like I said, is how do you bring those concepts of IT that we normally speak into something that is culturally related across India and also to other cultures? Is probably the next thing that I think is going to happen there.
Right, right. I think I completely agree. I'm not sure. I'm not the right person to comment on how well we are growing towards digitization. But yes, of course, there is some certain impact on what we started and where we are right now. And I think you rightly mentioned about the UPI payments. I think that's one of the significant breakthroughs that probably we have made in India when we're talking about digitization. So yeah, I mean, since we're talking about UPI, so in the finance sector itself, I think when digitization or digital applications come into picture, I think we have more greater access and there's a lot of inclusion of people in India, and since we have like a vast majority of a population, so how do we include all of them together? That's where I think digitization plays a very important role. Um, but on the other hand, I want to understand why do we need digitization in the electronics industry? What is that significant benefit probably the electronics industry can get or probably can advance further with digitization?
Okay, I'll give how I'm looking at it, and obviously, it's very personal in the way every architect or every digital person feels like. So when you look
Right,
at
right.
even products from our own organization, right? I mean, TVS Electronics. So our famous, marquee product is a dot matrix printer. And if you look at other, peripherals that are in that space, right? It's not just the printers. You'll have barcode scanners. You'll have point of sale system. So we have been, let us say, traditionally very hardware specific company, correct? So you
Mhm.
can see that it's just not enough to be hardware alone, right? So there is a greater aspect of the software. So what makes iPhone so special? It's the beautiful design that goes with it, the hardware components that kind of excel in it, along with the software that make it like a
Right.
an excellent product, right? So the way I'm looking at it
Mhm.
is, yes, the entire electronics industry, I mean, starting with our own TVS Electronics. So we've been a very traditional hardware centric kind of a company, but now with this kind of platform that is getting in, so how do I take the the software pieces, marry them with these hardware pieces, and make that experience so smooth for the customer, whether it's enterprise customers or whether it is end consumers, that it's an experience where you don't know where the hardware is and where the software is. And that's the reason I think
Right.
we need that component of digitization in electronics for you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think that that makes quite a lot of sense as to why we need digitization in the electronics industry. But I think I was just going through one of the article and it said that if companies were to branch out beyond digitization and digital transformation, basically through interconnected and integrated technologies like probably sensors or app-based controls, edge computing for that matter, or smart machinery, then they would gain more efficiency and performance, like more higher efficiency and performance in the business operations. Now, in today's age, we know that the world is growing and we have more interconnected devices thanks to Internet of Things and IoT applications. So I think that's giving more boost to digital popularity and it's more adoption, I believe. Now, I wanted to understand how does the digital ecosystem connect the integrated end-to-end electronic solutions?
So I mean, at a very L0 level, for at least in 10, 15 years ago, we used to use the word like an API to kind of stitch them together, right? The way you want to kind of bring systems together. But it's significantly changed thanks to the way we kind of look at the whole digital ecosystem. When I say digital ecosystem, it could be starting with very simple things like the Google Maps. I mean, Google is just one kind of an example of a provider of maps, but without the services of maps, where are you? So without the services of the cloud systems or the cloud providers, where are you? Without AI and what's happening in the Gen AI space, where are we? And the mobile kind of taking over, where are we? So when I look at this digital ecosystem, it's not just that time it used to take for us to develop through API. It's now become so hardwired that each of these things that I've spoken about in the ecosystem talk to each other, that the flywheel kind of begins that momentum at some point for all of us to kind of come up with the most innovative solutions all by ourselves. And also the industry also kind of benefits from uh, really bringing these kind of services that are available from third parties, and you don't even realize that can they even talk together. Absolutely, they'll talk together because they've all been laid out on a standard platform that we all think digitally. So every organization is thinking digitally, every organization is producing products on the same kind of digital services that are available across the planet. So as a result, you don't even realize that we are talking to each other in the same language. And that's how I see, Priya, that the ecosystem is going to be integrated in this kind of a world.
Right, right. I think I completely agree on it. I think that was a very different perspective that you shared when you talk about the end-to-end electronic solutions and the role of digital transformation in that. Currently, I think the elephant in the room that everybody is talking about is artificial intelligence, and I guess that's currently at the forefront of digital applications, I would say, and it is transforming nearly everything in our world, predominantly for the better, I would say. Then we have generative AI, natural language processing that offer advanced content creation and language comprehension. Now, the extensive data generated by digital means that it provides more critical insights into consumer preferences or market fluctuations or demands, and it helps in driving data-driven decision making at each level of your business process, I would say. And yes, I also have witnessed when talking to other speakers on our podcast. They have also shared some insight as to how they have used, location data, for example, to drive more decisions and accurate decision making for that matter. So I wanted to understand what do you think or your views on how does AI play a significant role in the entire digitization in TVS Electronics, considering TVS Electronics.
Okay. I mean, you spoke about some examples. Why don't we take at least one example to begin with? So you generally look at business users, right? I mean, they could come from
Mm-hmm.
non-digital backgrounds and all, right? How do you? I mean, they obviously are making their entire decisions based on data, and every day the maturity in the data that they look at kind of keeps going. So they look at these metrics and they decide, what, I've gone from level 0 to level 1, now help me with the second set of metric. So this demand
Mm-hmm.
for looking at data differently comes back to IT all over. So how do you now put it
Right.
like a service solution, right, where they can talk to the entire organization's data that is sitting somewhere, and you get your answers. Why do you need somebody to actually write a technology based scripting thing to actually solve that problem? So that's
Mm-hmm.
how we are kind of making it such that here is your enterprise transactional data, all kinds of data sources that are there, all kinds of business intelligence from the ecosystem that we spoke about. And why don't you just talk to it in a natural language and ask your questions, and that way you don't have to come back to IT or digital teams to get more. So that's one use case that's kind of been my favorite pet projects for a very long time, and we're
Mm-hmm.
very very close. Given the Chat GPT has come out and it can now become an
Right.
organization GPT by itself, but
Mm-hmm.
to right, but to actually kind of look at the role of AI, there are two streams of thought that people are kind of looking at now, Priya. One, to bring AI into the human being itself. So how do you augment as much intelligence as possible into the the business user or a normal people, so that they can do
Mm-hmm.
much better decision. At the same time, the other way is to take the machine and make it as kind of have that human intelligence into it. So between the two, we'll have to kind of balance between man with AI and the machine with the human thing. So which of both are equally important? Both have their own pros and cons. So how does it play out? We'll have to see. That's very interesting in the next couple of years. That's going to happen.
Right, right. And I think just that the one question that really popped up in my mind spontaneously right now is that, we were talking about data. So, yes, data is definitely the oil of the, 21st century. We all know that. But I guess along with data, a lot of other concerns have also come into picture when we talk about data security and data protection. So, have you ever come across any such challenge in terms of ensuring data protection? And if you can share, how do you ensure, data security at its best at TVS Electronics?
Sure. I mean, it's extremely important that whatever you could do to kind of put those defenses in place based on the best things that are happening in the industry. You'll have to read up a lot to figure out what else is happening. So many contributions that happen from the open source industry. So we take all that and kind of build our defenses. Just like any other organization, no different from that. But a couple of things that kind of distinguish, or which is important, is uh, security by design. By that, I don't differentiate security as a separate pillar which is running only responsible for taking care by the rest of the organization. No. So it is so kind of ingrained that security, operations, digital, finance, whatever you kind of name it, is all integrated into the same individual being. You cannot say that what, security is being taken care by another. So that's how a key differentiation in which we try to bring a cultural change within our
Mm-hmm.
organization. So that is a key differentiation, I would say, secure by design. The other aspect, of course, like we spoke about, anybody has to put those controls. And one most important thing that I can probably talk about is we may not be the right people who have those skill set in that security, because it is becoming very complex in that cybersecurity world,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Right,
I would
right.
probably kind of say, what, this kind of fintech kind of companies are better suited to keep the customer's credit card details. So guys, can I work
Mm-hmm.
with you? Do you want to take that responsibility, right? So we kind of give it to the right person. So more like a transferred risk,
Mm-hmm.
if I would say, right? So that's probably a better way,
Yeah.
because you're putting it into the hands of people who really know some things and who may have those, that is their core forte. So it's better that they take
Right.
care of such things.
Yeah, definitely. I think I agree. Like having like a strong and a robust security partner with you that works closely with you, it definitely ensures that you are maintaining maximum security and ensuring that the data is protected and trying to mitigate all the risks and vulnerabilities that come along with the cyber attacks that way.
Yes.
So that was probably one of the challenge, I would say. Now, if we talk about the overall electronics industry, I think it operates in a very fast-paced environment where technology rapidly evolves. Now, you have hardware changes, software updates, the new technologies coming, the hardware, there are chip developments, and a lot of other things that definitely come into picture. So, keeping up with the latest trends, innovation, and of course, consumer demands can sometimes be very challenging, I believe. And here, then you need a lot of continuous research and development, investment and adaptation to stay competitive. Now, for example, when you're talking about electric vehicles, we have a shortage of charging stations, or we also have a shortage of chips for that matter. Do we have that much of chips investment? So again, there are a lot of challenges that come again whenever a new technology comes into picture. And overall, I think the electronics industry relies on very complex global supply chains and which involves numerous partners like suppliers, manufacturers, distributors, retailers, and you have consumers. So, what do you think are the current challenges that you are facing as a digital officer, and any plans or any strategies that you may have right now or in the future to overcome them?
Sure. So you touched upon some very, very interesting, and those are real problems that we face, especially in the COVID times, right? I mean, the supply chain getting disrupted. Now that that is all getting stabilized a little, but people have definitely started understanding, what could be the risk on that business, continuity planning, right? So
Mhm.
from that perspective, what I can see as a major challenge that is coming is, one, if you take this, the way in technology, the way generative AI specifically, let us say, is kind of taking the leaps. You have a lot of demand for these specialized clouds which actually run on GPUs. Okay, and those GPUs are not so simple to kind of procure. The whole world is behind, so there are very few. So the traditional cloud providers are very highly on the CPU front, while the GPU makers are kind of very few. And to get hold of a machine which actually has a GPU, and to be able to run and train your own models for the large language model converted into, let us say, a TVS tiny language model. So where do you find that kind of infrastructure? So that is one thing that, as a digital guy, I see as a challenge. And for that one, what we have done is we have kind of partnered with companies which actually have provision for that, and who have already built models which can be kind of tailored to our requirements. So that's something that we have done to mitigate that challenge. And the other one that I can think of purely from a digital is, how long will it be like there's hundreds of business users and probably very few people who can speak the digital language, right? So the ratio is probably 1 is to 25, and unless it comes down to 1 is to 4, I think it might be a little difficult for the digital teams to kind of any place to kind of satisfy the lot of demand that is coming through to get digitized. So the only alternative for that one is you start bringing in the low code, no code culture into the organization, so that the business users themselves start appreciating how to do automation without having to depend upon the IT teams. You know that's something that is kind of a challenge, and I think we're getting very close to get that driven within TVS.
Yeah, yeah. I think I agree with you. I think when you're talking about the low code, no code development tools, I think there's a lot of adoption that I have seen recently across different industries when you talk about these tools, because they definitely are some of the coding assistant tools that can help developers and other programmers in the digital space or in any of the tech space, irrespective of any industry you're operating into. So of course, you were talking about electronics industry, but I'm glad to hear that you we are thinking on those lines of adopting those tools in India and also in the electronics industry specifically. Now, one last question for you, Ravi, that would be, what do you think are your views on the future of digitization in the electronics industry, specifically in India? I would like to know.
Okay, so it's not going to kind of, I mean, it's going to get exponentially more electronic products which kind of solve our day-to-day problems. So the way we are looking at it is, you have your traditional general purpose operating systems which we used to solve our problems in terms of app stores and play stores and whatever convenience that we had, and SaaS products that are there. But I think now it's come back again to embedded software. So you will find a lot more demand for embedded software, and marrying the lowest level of hardware with the software, so that you can speak to the hardware system. So that's something that will take a lot of demand, and you won't find you need very big systems to solve the problem. You would find products which are having these tiny electronic components which talk to each other, which kind of solve the problems of small convenience, which you don't even realize those things are happening. Which means, like, the way traditional IT has now become part of banking, finance, I mean, any kind of industry that we take. So I think electronics also would become a part of any organization. You would find that those are some skills that everybody in the organization, from finance to business to any part of the organization, would start. The only fear that comes along with it, obviously there are benefits of that, but the fear that comes with so many components kind of exploding and so many there, would it come to a point where they will realize that, what, we already have so many components, they could probably all be stitched together in some other solution that is going to come out, which is going to be the transformative solution that we all have to look forward. So we don't have to go with more large scale exponential way in which this kind of components are getting manufactured. Oh, there is enough number of components there, but they can all be kind of married together to kind of form, just like a cloud, right? So cloud is kind of abstracting out that entire thing. So is it even possible that our mobiles can also be somehow be connected together to form a cloud which can do? So you have a strip mall of 20 shops. Do all of them need a point of sale solution, or can all of them kind of share a single device which can actually act as a point of sale system? Because you just cannot have this kind of explosion go on for the next 5 years. That's the flip side of it. But on the the positive side, yeah, so it's not going to stop. I mean, you will find so many use cases that are getting addressed through these electronic components that you will be in a different world altogether with respect to today and tomorrow.
Right. I think I completely agree, and that was definitely a very great answer, and to something end our podcast with. Yes, the electrical and the electronics industry is one of the largest industrial sectors, and definitely plays a huge role in the future viability due to its innovative solutions. And with the rapid growth in the technological sector, with the fast growth of data, the pace, the increasing adoption of AI, IoT devices, the requirements and the need for flexible and agile processes are also growing simultaneously. So I believe that digital transformation is a journey embarked upon by companies who aim to achieve more efficiency, a competitive edge, and success across different facets of business. And the upcoming, or rather current phase in this journey, I would say, is artificial intelligence. And right now, of course, we have generative AI, and we all know probably we'll be expecting more such developments. And I'm not sure what the next AI would be called, probably like a human AI. So yeah, that's the end for a podcast. Thank you so much, Ravi, for
Thank
running
you,
your
Priya.
time and being on this podcast and sharing some um, insightful perspectives on the electronics industry and how digitization and different technologies are helping the electronics industry in India.
Thank you for having me, Priya, and it was nice talking to you too.
Great. So this is for our listeners. Stay tuned for our more such upcoming podcasts, and you can listen to all our podcasts on Spotify as well. Thank you so much.